Hey, travel fam, it's Darian, and welcome back to I Need Travel Therapy. Today we got a really exciting episode, but before we get started, I wanted to remind you guys to please check out our Instagram. We have a lot of fun new content on there. It's brand new, so we're very excited about it. We're going to be posting about guests that we have coming on. We're going to be posting about different things that we've got coming up. So definitely check that out. And please comment, write to us. Let us know what you want to hear about. We're really excited to work with you guys. And we do this for you. So if you've got questions about travel therapy or wondering how, this or that works, please reach out to us. And if you guys are enjoying the episode, please leave us a review. That always really helps us and kind of helps move us forward. If you're not enjoying it, you can just forget that I said it. You don't have to leave a review. It's fine. Today, we're going to be talking with Carly. We're going to be talking about her experiences traveling, buying a home, and working in different settings and what that looks like. Carly has been an occupational therapist for 4 years, and she has been traveling for 2 of those years. She has worked mainly with pediatric and the geriatric population in several different settings. After a travel contract brought her to Montana, she decided to settle down and stay for a while, though looks forward to traveling again in the future. Carly is an avid hiker, skier, hobby photographer, and lives with her husband and 10-month-old puppy in the mountains. Let's get started with this episode. Hey, Carly, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi, we're so excited to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to be here.
So we first found you because you have an awesome Instagram with lots of fun pictures.
Oh,
so we
you.
reached out to you and we had a great conversation. I'm really excited. There's some really fun topics that we're going to cover that I think there's a lot of people out there that want to learn more about. So
yeah, definitely.
We're going to kind of start off talking about travel and how you got started in the travel world. So can you tell us what that looked like for you and kind of how that process got started for you?
Yeah, sure. So I graduated with my master's in occupational therapy, and I just took a normal, just a permanent position. Okay. And I ended up at some point in my working life, I took a vacation. So I think I took maybe 1 or 2 weeks off work. And I went to Europe and I traveled around a few countries there. And it was just so nice being able to take that break from work and then come back and, work again. But of course, what I found when you have a permanent job, like a permanent position, you can only take so much time off of work here and there. And that kind of led me to look into things that would allow for a little more flexibility, and being able to take off when you need to or when you want to. So I kind of came into learning about travel therapy, and I just looked into it, and I just did a lot of research into it before even, I think, contacting anyone. But and it just really sounded like something that I really wanted to do, because you still get to work, you still get to, help people and use your degree and work in a job that you love, but it's a lot more flexible. You can travel and take time off and just go on a ton of cool adventures without having to worry about what time off is allowed or isn't allowed. So just the flexibility of it, I really, really loved.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's something that I think a lot of people they may think that that's a possibility, but they don't necessarily know with travel that it's so flexible. Like you could take a month off between contracts if you want to, which is super cool.
It is so flexible.
I mean, when in a permanent job, I can't take a month off. Sadly. If anybody's listening, give me a month off. I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
So it sounds like it kind of opened up options for you as far as being able to travel a bit more and have the flexibility with your schedule. How else do you feel like travel's been able to kind of change your lifestyle in general?
Definitely just being put into new experiences and experiencing new things. I mean, both in during work, in the clinic or the hospital or wherever, and also outside of work. It's just so cool being able to experience things that you wouldn't necessarily get to experience if you stay in your hometown or something like that. Like I remember when I'm from the Midwest, so I was out in California for a while, and I remember just waking up every day and walking down the street and, just being surrounded by palm trees. And it's
Yeah.
just such a different sort of, I don't know, just the things you see every day and the things you get to do. It just gives you a lot of different options that you wouldn't normally have if you stay in one place.
Yeah. Is there any passions that you found from traveling that maybe you didn't realize, like, hey, I love to hike, or I love karaoke bars at new locations I go to? Is there anything that you didn't realize you love?
Right.
Yeah.
If I was good at singing, maybe I would like karaoke.
Okay.
Well, I think before I started traveling, I did start to get into hiking and photography and being outdoors, just a little. But traveling really opened up those doors for me to experience that way more. So I was able to get outside a lot more often, go on some crazy awesome hikes that I never would have been able to go on if I stayed in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And also then doing all that fun stuff, I kind of started to pick up photography a little bit. I'm not a professional or anything. It's just a hobby. But then, doing all that fun stuff, I got to take pictures of it and just have fun with like the editing and just like composing a good photo. So those two hobbies really came along with traveling, and also skiing, because we weren't that far from Lake Tahoe when we were in California. So I picked up skiing, and it's one of my favorite things to do now.
I've heard such good things about Lake Tahoe, but I sadly haven't been there. I've been to many places in California. No, I need to go this summer, maybe.
Yeah, it's beautiful there in the summer and in the winter.
Yeah. I feel like, as far as travel goes, with COVID and everything that's been going on, I don't know about you, but obviously you've been traveling, but I feel like this itch to go and see all these new places now that you're allowed to, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Now that things are opening up more and stuff, it's like there's so much more possibility. So you're just like, oh, where can I go here now? Where do you want to go next? Yeah.
Yeah. And people that have been in permanent jobs are starting to look at travel as being a good option because the market's gotten so much better, which has been great. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Is there any, as far as hiking goes, is there any websites or anything that you like to use that helps you find good hikes and places that you're going?
Yeah. So I use the app All Trails. I think it's a pretty popular app, but it's so convenient because it shows you all of the hikes available in your area, or you could search other areas if you're trying to plan a trip somewhere. And it shows the length of the hike, the elevation gain. And there's also reviews from other people who have hiked the trail. So it kind of gives you a good idea of what to expect. So that's been super helpful.
Oh,
I use that.
Sure.
I use that almost weekly still, I would say, just looking for different hikes. Yeah.
I love that they have the difficulty rating on there too.
Yes.
For people that don't know, that's a nice feature. Because some days you're just not trying to do a super hard hike, right? Mm-hmm. Some days you are. So I think that's really nice that. Is there any special experiences that you've had, or I guess stories from your travels that have really reinforced why you did this in the first place?
I can think of one when we were back in California, and we kind of had I don't know if I had a break between contracts or a few days off. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we didn't have anything planned. So I started looking at some hikes, and I ended up, long story short, being able to score some overnight permits for a place in California called Big Pine Lakes. And it's just a beautiful backpacking destination. It's a pretty tough hike to get there. And, you're carrying your tent on your back and everything. But the permits are pretty hard to come by. So I don't know if someone canceled last minute and we were just able to pick up a couple. But it was just so cool being able to do that last minute. We didn't have anything planned, but all these beautiful mountains and trails were right in our backyard. So we were able to get the permits, and then we went out there for the weekend and hiked and camped. And it was so beautiful. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that area, but it's so beautiful. And being able to do that so last minute and not have to book a flight or try to find transportation out there. It was awesome. And I took some great photos and, and that it's just definitely reinforced to me that I was so happy to be traveling, to have all these awesome places and like options of places to go right in my backyard.
Yeah, no, for sure. I have never done an overnight backpacking trip,
Oh,
but I want to. It's on my list. I wanted to do Havasu Falls too.
oh
I think
yeah,
I've
that's
heard really good
beautiful.
things about that. Yeah, for sure. Have you been there too?
I haven't.
Okay.
I think it's tough to get permits to do that one,
Yeah,
but
same
definitely on
thing,
the
I
bucket
think.
list. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Um, and then you keep saying we. So you're traveling with someone, right? Who are you traveling with?
Yes. So when I started traveling, he was my boyfriend, but now he's my
Yeah.
husband.
As of last week, right?
Yes, as of last week.
And can you tell everyone where you got married? Because I just think it's so cool.
Yes, we eloped. We got married in Moab, Utah, actually in Canyonlands National Park, kind of right on a cliff. So it was very adventurous.
Oh my gosh. So you said you eloped. Did you guys have friends or anybody that joined you, or is it just you two?
It was just us, and then
Wow.
we had hired like a couple photographers, and they kind of helped set up like where we would go and stuff. So just us.
How beautiful. Oh,
Yeah.
I can't. I want to see some pictures. I'll
Oh
check
yeah,
out
I'll
your
send them to
Instagram.
you. Oh yep, they're on there.
Okay, so outside of your job, it looks like you've been to some really great places too. Has there been any other parts of the world? I know that you've been a lot of places in the United States, but is there any other parts of the world that you've gotten to go to which you don't feel like you would have been able to do without travel therapy?
Yeah, definitely. My two favorite places I've been have been Iceland and Peru. And I know they're not sort of typical travel destinations, but that's kind of the nice thing about travel therapy is because you can kind of take time off like between contracts as you want. So you're really free to explore where you want, and you don't have to worry about like, oh, if I go here this year, then I can't go here. It kind of leaves you open to pick and choose. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was able to go to those two places, and yeah, they're beautiful, and I would recommend them to anyone. I know they're not, like I said, not typical destinations, but very, very cool.
Yeah. I have always wanted to go to Iceland. I've been to Peru twice, actually.
Oh, you have? Oh,
Yeah, I
wow.
haven't been to many other countries. I've done a lot of like United States travel, but I haven't been to many other countries but Peru, and it is just such a cool place. So
Oh, that's
that's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah. And then did you take a couple weeks off for those trips? Okay, so for somebody that maybe isn't traveling right now, I am. I know we touched on that a little bit with being able to have more flexibility with taking time off, but is that a challenge? Is that just a conversation you're having with your recruiter, or what does that look like for taking that time off?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple ways you can do it, which is kind of how I have done it. If before you sign a contract, before you book a contract, if there's a week or something in that time that
Yeah.
that you have in mind, like I want to take this specific week off and go here, then before you sign that contract, you just talk to your recruiter and see if you can get that specific week written in your contract that you have off, and that's really all you have to do.
Okay.
And then also you can also take off time between contracts. Um, and that's sort of just your own personal time. You don't have to, ask anyone to
Yeah.
for that time off. Just yeah, you can take as much time off as you want in between the contracts that you work.
Yeah, so then it's kind of just planning when that start date is for the next assignment, which you have total
Exactly.
flexibility with, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then I also saw on your Instagram that you lived in Joshua Tree for a little bit.
We
Can you
did,
tell us about
yes.
that?
Yeah, we took about a month off between contracts, sort of how what we've been talking about. We took
Yeah.
about a month off, and we found this awesome little camper in the middle of the desert in Joshua Tree, and we were able to stay there for about a month, and it was so much fun because I never would have been able to do that if I was, just working a standard permanent position.
Yeah.
So it was just awesome. We got to hike. We did like all of the hikes in Joshua Tree National Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just got to, we were up for every sunrise and saw the sunset, and yeah, it was beautiful.
Ugh.
It was so much
Joshua
fun.
Tree, I think is just so cool too. And staying in a camper for a month with your now
Yeah.
husband, right? You weren't
Yeah.
married then. It's probably a good test, right?
It was.
Such small confined spaces. I love it. Okay, so something else that I really want to talk to you about is buying a house.
Yeah.
You recently kind of slowed the roll on travel, right? And
We did, yeah.
settled down and bought a house. So can you tell us a little bit about what, started that transition and how you ended up finding the location where you wanted to buy your house?
Yeah. So I ended up getting a contract. I didn't have any contracts or anything planned. And I just sort of ended up getting a contract in Montana. And I hadn't really ever thought about going to Montana or looked into it or anything, but that's sometimes I think when the best things happen is when you don't really plan it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got a contract in Montana and we came here and just really fell in love with the state and with the area that we're in.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was, we liked it so much that we really had to talk about it. Do we want to still keep traveling for a little bit or do we want to just stay here for a little bit? And we ended up, of course, choosing to settle down here for a little bit.
Yeah.
And we got a puppy. So that that made us want to stay put just for a little bit too. Yeah, we loved the area so much. And I would have never even thought about coming here or anything like that if it wasn't for the travel contract that I got. It introduced me to this place. So I'm so thankful for that because we love it here.
I think Montana's so beautiful too. I could see settling down or like falling in love with it there. It's kind of like Colorado from what I remember, but it's maybe a little less populated. I suppose it depends on what areas you're in, right?
Yeah, it definitely depends on what areas you're in. But overall, I'd say, yeah, Montana's definitely, it's different. It's just a lot less populated, a lot less busy. And yeah, it's beautiful. And we kind of lucked out with the contract that I got. We're right in the mountains. So we don't even have to, drive anywhere. We're right here. It's all in our backyard. But yeah, so we just liked it. It's like a slow pace.
Yeah.
Very peaceful, not very crowded. It's beautiful.
Had you been planning on buying a home, or was this again just something that you're like, we can't leave, so we're gonna buy a house?
Yeah, we were not planning on buying a house at all. And we kind of had decided that we wanted to stay, and we didn't know if we should rent something out, rent an apartment out. And we were kind of talking about it, and we just kind of decided, we just kind of said, hey, well, if we're going to stay, why don't we just buy a house? And we told our parents, and they were shocked. They never thought that we would stop traveling or, settle down. But it was kind of just like a split, second decision.
Yeah, for sure. As far as like saving up for a house, because usually people like plan hey, we're going to buy a house. So they start saving up for it. So obviously you guys were kind of saving along the way. Do you have any suggestions for maybe another travel therapist that's interested in buying a home on like maybe tricks that you guys did to put more money aside?
Yeah, well, the nice thing is too about travel therapy and your contracts is I think you're paid, you're reimbursed pretty well.
Yeah.
So it was pretty easy to set money aside just because it is, and I think a lot of travel therapists do the same thing with, the good money you're making. They'll save or pay off some student debt, whatever it may be. But we, like I said, one of our, our hobbies are mostly outside. So I would say if you can find some hobbies and like points of interest that don't really cost a lot of money. Like, of course, I would recommend, hiking and being outside and exploring. And if you can find some hobbies like that, where you're not just kind of loosely spending money every weekend, then it's pretty easy to put away, little bits here and there from your paycheck and save up. And that's kind of what we did. Not even in planning to buy a house, but just, we wanted to have money in our savings account just in case. So we just preemptively did that, and it worked out because then we decided to buy a house.
And you're set up. That's great. Okay, that's very cool. Is there anything that Were special considerations? I've been asked this question before. As a traveler, you have a taxable hourly that's slightly less, right, than maybe a permanent job, and then you've got your higher stipends. Is
Yes.
that taken into consideration, or is there anything wonky with that when you're going to apply for a loan, or is it pretty much straightforward like you were in any normal job?
Yeah, for me, there wasn't any like obstacles with that or
Okay.
anything. It was pretty straightforward, just like I was in
Yeah.
a regular job. You just kind of submit the documentation that they ask for, and yeah, that was it. They didn't ask me about that specific part of it. So I don't think, at least for me, it wasn't an issue.
That's great. Okay. Um, Something else that was important for us to talk about is transitioning between different settings, because that's something that you've done a lot, right? So, can you tell us about what settings you've worked in, and what patient populations, that type of thing?
Yeah, so I've worked in skilled nursing and like subacute rehab, and then also in schools with younger kids. So that's two very different
Yes.
settings with two very different age groups. Yeah. So those are the
Very
main ones I've worked in.
okay. And obviously they differ by quite a bit, but
Yes.
did you just happen to fall in love with the location and decided to switch to a school or subacute? Or I guess, how did you decide to make that transition to a completely different setting?
Right. Well, I think one of the things with travel therapy is it's good to kind of just be open to different possibilities and open to the different settings you're going to work in. So when out of college, I initially worked in skilled nursing. So for my permanent job for those years after I graduated college, it was just skilled nursing. That's all I had done in my professional career that far. And and then when I started looking into travel, and talking to my recruiter and everything, a school position popped up and it was available. And, I kind of thought back and forth about interviewing for it because it was in a nice location in California and I really wanted to go, but I was unsure because I didn't have any experience. I mean, in school, in college, we did like clinicals in the school settings. But just from my professional experience, I had never worked in a school. So I really went back and forth about if I should go for it or not. But I really wanted to travel and I wanted to go to this place in California. So I interviewed for it and they picked me and off I went.
Okay, so it was kind of or you were doing
Yeah.
it based on the location that you wanted to go to, which totally makes sense. I think being open to those different settings, whether you're currently working in schools and maybe open to medical or
Yeah.
vice versa, or obviously medical, there's all sorts of settings too.
Oh,
Having
yeah.
that flexibility kind of opens up new locations for you too, which is awesome, which worked out for you.
Yes, it just being open to different settings and stuff, it opens up so many doors and there's so many more possibilities of different places that you can go.
Yeah. So working with all like adult geriatric population and then switching to schools, did you start working with like elementary age, high school, or what age range were you working with?
When I started, I had a caseload of kids all the way from preschool to high school. So it was a
Oh,
big it was a big range.
okay. Were you working at multiple schools there too?
Yeah, multiple schools. I think I covered maybe 8 or 9. It was a big district.
Okay.
Yeah.
But working with like geriatrics and then switching to pediatrics, was there anything that you did to like prep for that? Not having that school experience, or were you
Yeah.
just like, hey, I'm here,
Yeah, definitely. So I, cracked open my textbooks from school and I kind of brushed up on some school specific, school based occupational therapy things. And then I also took some like online continuing ed classes. I actually took quite a few before my start date,
Yeah.
just specific to school occupational therapy and,
Yeah.
the different like the IEP meetings and the documentation. And so those are the two things I did was look at my old textbooks and stuff and then do some online courses to get me ready for a school position since I had only ever worked with the adult population.
Yes. Do you prefer, I guess, now that you've had experience in all ages, do you prefer geriatrics still, or do you like pediatrics more, or do you kind of enjoy both?
I think I enjoy both for different reasons because
Yeah.
it's two totally, completely different settings. So there's like good things about both of them. And I like both. I
Okay.
don't think I could pick one over the other.
Yeah.
But it's cool because I would have never known that I did like, school-based occupational therapy, because I would have never thought about, taking a job in a school. But since travel therapy kind of pushed me towards it, I feel like I'm more skilled now because I
Yeah.
have that experience, which I wouldn't have had before. So
Yeah. Is there any skills that you feel like you said, you wouldn't have gotten if you wouldn't have tried working in a school, like special things that you learned that you're like, hey, I'm going to take this through the rest of my career?
yeah, let me think.
It's
I
a tough one.
think I think it made me honestly a lot better at meetings. And I know you don't always think about that in like the therapy world. You just think about the
Yeah.
the treatment. But there is, there's meetings with patients and family members and staffs. And in the school district that I worked in, we had a lot of meetings and IEP meetings. And I was kind of nervous at first because it's not something that you do all the time in like a medical setting. But in the schools, they do have a lot. So I think it definitely gave me that skill of being more confident in meetings and being able to present my reports and my progress confidently and kind
Yeah.
of interacting with other team members. And I
Okay.
think that, yeah, in the schools, at least for me, I did that way more than I did in a medical setting. So
Yeah.
now that I'm back in a medical setting, when we have meetings and stuff, I feel like I'm better prepared, just better experienced, having had all those meetings when I was in the
Yeah.
schools.
So for someone that maybe is potentially interested in a school but isn't that excited about meetings, are meetings a big portion of working in a school? I know you've got
Um,
IEP meetings, but is that like, again, is that one day a month you're really focusing on that? Or what portion of your day would you say is meetings?
I think it depends. Like you don't have a meeting every day, and I think it may depend on the school district too. I'm not for sure, but I think some meetings, I don't know if they're just held once a year, and sometimes they do like twice a year or three times a year, and it depends on how many kids you have on your caseload too.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're definitely not in meetings every day. But maybe I'd say several a month
Okay.
at least.
That's not
But
too bad.
no, it's not too bad. It's just more than I had when I was in the medical field.
Yeah. And being a traveler in a school setting, do you feel like you're as involved in the school as, a permanent employee in the school? Does
I
that make
thought so.
sense? Or does it feel
Yeah.
different? Okay.
I never really had an issue with it. I worked in let me think. The one particular district that I worked in, all of the school OTs and SLPs, we all shared like an office room, an office
Hmm.
building sort of thing. So it was nice to have all of them with me, and I could kind of bounce ideas off of them, and they had a lot of, advice for me. So yeah, I think it was great. I didn't really kind of feel like the outsider.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So I guess we've covered a lot of information. Is there any thing that you would tell to a therapist that's maybe interested in transitioning settings but has only worked in one? Maybe suggestions or advice that you'd give them?
Yeah, I would definitely say if you want to transition settings, just do it. And definitely, prepare. Like I said, I did some online CEU courses and looked in my textbooks. But once you kind of look back into the stuff that you have learned, when you were in grad school, in occupational therapy school or whatever, once you kind of revisit some of that stuff that you learned, it kind of comes back to you. So like I know
Yeah.
it's kind of like a scary, you might be nervous, like, oh, am I gonna be able to do this job well if I don't have any experience? But the best way to really learn how to work in a new setting is by working in a new setting.
Yeah.
So really just do it, and you learn so much, and it can open so many doors in the future having that experience.
Yeah, I think so much of travel is just do it, right?
Yep.
Like any advice that we ever get, it's always just do it. Because at the end of the day, travel's a little bit of a leap of faith and
It
like a
is.
little bit of excitement and being adaptable and just do it, you know? I
Yep.
love it.
Yep. And I know it can, like I said, it can kind of be scary and intimidating. But once you get, you just do it, just get past it, and it's great. You'll thank yourself.
Yeah. Too bad we can't trademark that. Just do it. It's been taken.
It's been taken, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Carly, for taking the time to chat with us today. This has been so great, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right, bye.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for tuning in to I Need Travel Therapy. To learn more about today's episode, make sure to explore the show notes at medtravelers.com/I Need Travel Therapy. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a guest. If you're a therapist interested in traveling, visit medtravelers.com to explore nationwide travel therapy job offerings and to learn about the amazing benefits that MedTravelers has to offer. Also, a very special thanks to producer Jonathan Carey, assistant producers Katie Schraben and Sam McKay, and Aiden Dykes for the music and editing. See you next time, Travel Fam.